That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Road Games, the 1981 film directed by Richard Franklin. That Sharp Factory released on November 12th. On Blu-ray.
Who made this film?
Richard Franklin.
And what else has he done?
Okay, so I think it's important to explain this is a what's considered Ozploitation, which was a movement of Australian cinema, genre cinema in the 70s and 80s. There's a documentary about it called Not Quite Hollywood, The Wild Untold Story of Ozploitation from 2009, where I think this Franklin film got a lot of resurrected attention. This is notable because it has American imports, Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis. Franklin, before this, did a kind of a cult favorite called Patrick.
Okay.
It's about a patient that's supposedly comatose whose eyes are open, but there's something wrong with Patrick. Which Tarantino this Road Games is Tarantino's favorite Australian film. Apparently.
Wait, what were you going to say about Patrick?
But Patrick, do you remember at the beginning of Kill Bill when she's in the coma?
I haven't seen Kill Bill.
You haven't seen Kill Bill?
No. Anyway. This movie.
Getting back to Robert Patrick.
Great.
Or Richard Franklin. Richard Franklin.
Robert Patrick's the man from Terminator 2?
Correct.
Oh. Who looks like the man from Charlie's Angels.
Who looks like Jonathan Tucker, yeah. Because I think of the success of Road Games, he got to
Road
Games.
With minoxidil? Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Did Psycho 2.
The man who made Road Games did Psycho 2?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't seen that either, but...
That's pretty... I actually quite like it with Meg Tilly and Vera Miles.
Is that Jennifer Tilly's sister?
Yes, who was famous before her.
Oh, okay. Bullets Over Broadway.
This is Jennifer.
I know.
Okay. Meg Tilly. Big Chill, Meg Tilly.
Okay. So what is this movie
Body
about?
Snatchers. Okay. And then, Richard Franklin, you've seen Link.
Okay.
With Elizabeth Shue, where that gorilla is like eyeing her sexually. That's actually all I remember from that movie.
I don't recall that, but...
Where she almost gets molested by Link, the gorilla.
Okay.
It was a horror film. And he did the sequel to FX2, obviously. Road Games.
Yeah. So...
I was actually very happy to see this. I've been wanting to for a long time.
It's about a truck driver in the Australian outback, and we're just like watching him drive around while news of like a serial killer picking up hitchhikers is on the loose. So the film opens with this truck driver played by
Stacy Keach,
who I actually think is really appealing. Yeah, I really liked his presence on screen. I liked his acting. He travels to a hotel to check in, but is beat by this man. Who takes the last room.
In a green van.
Mm-hmm. And then there's something peculiar about this man, and he kind of like...
Well, he notices that he's with this woman that he picked up, a hitchhiker, and he's kind of jealous about it. But the next morning, he notices like bags outside of the hotel room by the garbage, and the guy's peering out of his room.
And the truck driver's dog keeps sniffing at these bags.
Yes.
So it kind of gives you a hint as to maybe something isn't right. But so then we hear on the radio...
We also watched her get strangled.
Right. So we know that...
But he doesn't know that.
Right. Yeah. So this truck driver is just driving, and he starts... So the film, I think, starts off on a really high note. Because it was compelling. It was eerie. The truck driver, he talks to himself a lot in the truck with his companion Dingo. Or what he thinks is a dingo. Mm-hmm. I thought that was very fun to watch, and I thought it was very well written.
Yeah,
like that dialogue. And then he continues to.
And he picks up a woman, the frumpy housewife whose husband strangely has left her behind, and then she tie all those ribbons across the road so it stopped.
Yeah.
And then,
which was a funny scene because the truck driver has to slam the brakes and the dingo like flies to the front of the truck. So he picks up this woman, and then she's telling him about the serial killer.
And then he starts asking her questions that really unnerve her, and she ends up getting out of the truck. And then...
So up to this point, I think the film worked really well for me. But when she gets out of the truck and he refuses to let her, no, she asks to leave and he won't let her. That's when it kind of takes a turn, because then the truck driver goes from being sort of this interesting, quirky guy to kind of like ridiculous.
Well, so
He's all like he becomes immediately obsessed with the idea of the serial killer, like it's his job to catch him.
yeah, and then that's when the film takes on more of a Hitchcockian theme, which the homage to that, one of them is he calls Jamie Lee Curtis Hitch.
Okay.
He's seen her several times, and she's somehow always ahead of him, and he passes her.
Which was something that was very interesting. So yeah, as the truck driver's proceeding to through his route, he sees Jamie Lee hitchhiking, and somehow it's like there are three instances where he sees her hitchhiking ahead of him. So it begs the question, like, how did she get so far so fast, and why has she been dropped off? Mm-hmm. That's never really like revisited.
Not really, no.
But it was an interesting sort of feature in the story.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so he ultimately picks her up.
And then they decide to investigate the man in the green van themselves, and then she...
Inexplicably.
Yeah, and then...
She's the daughter of like a sort of like wealthy diplomat.
Yeah.
Which is a integral plot point, I suppose, because there are people looking for her. So then, of course, they'd be looking for the truck driver.
Right. And then a situation arises where they catch up with him, and she suddenly disappears with him, and the truck driver assumes that she willingly went along with the man in the green van until he sees that she's left her knapsack in his truck.
So his sort of like mission to catch the killer is deflated when he thinks that Jamie Lee Curtis's character willingly goes with the killer, or who he thinks is the killer, which he starts to question. But then, like you said, once he realizes that she didn't take her bag, he now thinks that maybe she was attacked or killed or kidnapped, and then he chases this killer.
And then picks up a pair of cops right before that follow him, that think he's suspicious while he's chasing the man in the green van.
There are a few instances where he is in a situation where things could have gone south very quickly and they don't, but also he didn't need to be in that situation.
Sure.
Like, he could have just notified law enforcement. Anyway, ultimately the film ends with him chasing the killer in the green van down, and the end scene is, I think, probably the biggest misstep of the film for me. Like,
I think that it is...
It's just inexplicable why he would go to these lengths.
I think there's a timing issue with a couple of those scenes too, where you just like it doesn't make sense that these cops would be following that close with their lights off while there's this long, slow procession in the end.
So in the end, the truck driver chases the van for quite some time, and then there's a point when like police kind of follow because maybe they think something's suspicious with the truck driver, not the van, and that scene goes on for way too long. But even before then, like when he's at the way station,
yeah,
and there are police officers there, it just is like, why don't you just tell them that, hey, this van you're looking for is right there, why don't you chase this van? But instead he chooses to. Now, I think one would explain that as like, he seems to have sort of a mental breakdown as well.
Yeah, he's starting to have hallucinations,
yeah.
Maybe because he's not getting sleep.
Ultimately, so then the film ends with us thinking that so the police kind of mistakenly arrest the truck driver, and the killer almost gets away. But then they find Jamie Lee Curtis alive in the van, and she points out the actual killer, and then it ended the film. I think the bones of this story are really, really good.
Well, it made sense to me that you would like that because you were a big fan of Duel.
Yes.
The Steven Spielberg.
Well, even when you read the back of the disc, mm-hmm. like the plot synopsis, I was sold. Like, it sounds like something I would like. And I do think the premise is very interesting. I just think that there are moments when it's a little too ridiculous to take seriously. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is not a very good actor in this.
She's only 23.
Well, you know, Janet Jackson was 17 when she did Control.
Sure.
And that's a masterpiece.
Okay.
So, you know, I just think... No, Jamie Lee Curtis is great. I just think that, you know, maybe the direction... I mean, I do think her acting is a little... It's a bit much. Even in the final scene where she's pulled out of this body bag from a truck by a man who was certainly going to kill her, her attitude is kind of like, hey, you left me behind. Like, what, bitch? You were almost like slaughtered, and you're just like kind of being like heady and annoying. So I think there were several missteps that in the story and in the acting, particularly by Jamie Lee Curtis, that took it down a few notches for me. But the actual story and I think the filmmaking are great.
Yeah, if you liked it, I think Psycho 2 is very underrated. And
okay, well, I will watch that.
The funny thing was, I think this came out in that Ozploitation documentary too. Jamie Lee said a lot of people on set were nasty to her, kind of, and would say
for Americans.
How does it feel to take jobs away from Australians?
It is peculiar why we needed them there. Like, why couldn't it have been like Australian actors? Well, she was kind of a big deal at that point, right?
Oh yeah, this is after Halloween.
So I mean, I get it, but
there's a subplot going on though in the film. There's a strike going on with the meat truckers because Stacy.
Because the truck driver is transporting meat.
So there's a standstill on meat being shipped around in Australia at this time. So that's why I was asking: is he a scab? I couldn't figure out.
I didn't know. I don't know how that would affect anything, but
there are some creepy things going on with that because after Jamie Lee disappears for a little bit, he goes in the back of his truck.
So in the back of his truck, he has like pig carcasses hanging,
and there's a carcass that looks very suspect. That it looks like
a woman's torso. That was creepy.
And because then he goes to the weigh station, they're like, you're overweight by
75 kilos,
which is
like 150 pounds. So which would be like a person.
There were creepy elements in that I liked it.
There were creepy elements that were taken away by I think Jamie Lee playing this character kind of like a little over the top. I think the initial hitchhiker the truck driver picks up is a little too sitcom-y, pushy wife character instead of just like a woman who's stranded.
Well, because her backstory too is like, how the fuck? How'd your husband leave you on the side of the road?
In the outback.
He wanted to get away. He wanted you to die. But
yeah, so I think that was a mistake. There are a few.
Or was I just not paying attention? They don't explain that, right?
No, she says he just left him. But yeah, there are a few plot points that make it hard to take this because this story is quite eerie. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it isn't allowed to fully it doesn't have full impact because of these sort of unintentional, campy.
But definitely worth a revisit. I can see the original poster is great for this, by the way, with the woman's front being unzipped and it's the lines on the highway.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But as far as other Jamie Lee's other horror films post Halloween and Halloween 2 weren't the greatest.
This is not a horror film though. This is like a thrill. I would call this like a thriller.
Sure, I'll take this any day over Prom Night though, with her and Leslie Nielsen.
Oh, but Prom Night 2.
Hello, Mary Lou.
Is worth watching.
She's not in that.
Well,
and that's kind of unrelated to the first one actually, but
go check out Prom Night 2, and then if you're interested in this film, I would say it's worth a watch.
What would you give it?
I would give this film 2 out of 5 stars.
I'd give this film 3 out of 5 stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Shout Factory.
Actually, let me change that.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it 2.5 out of 5 stars.
Okay.
Because I do think the main male actor is really good.
You've never seen Stacy Keach before?
That's who that is?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh yeah, he's in a lot of great stuff. Oh, The Original Killer Inside Me with Susan
Yeah,
Tyrrell.
I think that the writing of his character was a little over the top, but I think for what he was given, he did a really good job.
Yeah, I think he's a great actor from that period, especially.
Yeah, I liked him. So I think just for him and his dingo. And his dingo.
Dingo got your baby.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.